let me ask you this, because truthfully, I could tell you the last boxing match I watched live probably involved Muhammad Ali, and I keep up with what happens after the fact in boxing, so I've not seen your work in boxing. I have, however, heard you call professional wrestling and mixed martial arts, and they're pretty similar. I guess the question I'm trying to ask you is, was it hard for you to learn to be a good boxing analyst, since wrestling and mixed martial arts are somewhat, they're different branches of the same tree? Well, there's someone trying to call me now to sell me something. Toll-free call. Yes, we got a big budget here, ladies and gentlemen. They're different branches of the same tree. Boxing is over, and it's another flowered species entirely. Was it difficult for you to adapt to calling boxing too? Is it also, have you ever had conflict with some of your networks because you do wrestling stuff and the boxing promoters, or are they over with that now? We don't.
Yeah, no, good stuff. And in fact, I want to take umbrage to your analogy using the trees, though, because I really think that all of them are branches from the same tree. I think maybe boxing, because of its more dare I say, storied history. It's not always been storied, but because of its tenure, maybe people, it's the sweet science, and there was a time when the heavyweight champion was indeed the baddest man in the world. But I really believe that all three of them have similarities, and especially, Jim, and something you can definitely, support and attest to, the marketing. And you've said it. I remember you said it early, like UFC does pro wrestling better than pro wrestling at times, and boxing, as much as it was, ingrained in its presentation and like you say, the golden era of the heavyweights, I didn't find too much difficulty making the transition, because at the end of the day, I tried to be a storyteller as much as anything. Maybe certain things you want to change, but you're always trying to temper anyway, Jim, and it's like you're providing lyrics to the song, and you ride the peaks and valleys. So I don't think it was a big transition, but there are definite similarities, I believe. And in this day and age, I think if you're a boxing fan, you should be an MMA fan, and vice versa. And everybody, Jim, whether they want to admit it or not, everyone begins a pro wrestling fan.
Well, because everybody, whether they want to admit it or not, deep down, they want to see people argue and fight with each other in some respect. And actually, sometimes they want to see them argue more than they want to see them fight. Which is pretty much the basis of pro wrestling, but in some cases. But, here's the thing then. Am I crazy, or when I say that, am I crazy to say that the most profitable and most successful pro wrestling promotion in the world today is the UFC? And am I crazy to say that mixed martial arts is using wrestling's tricks because we're not using them anymore, so somebody might as well? Yes, I say yes, and with a caveat, I think we're seeing what just even this past Monday night, of all things, believe it or not, like I was very pleased with the wrestling, the actual amount of wrestling on Raw, and I think, as we all know throughout history, when you lose the big names or the faces, that's when you're forced to maybe do things which you should maybe have been doing all along, in terms of pushing other people or giving them the opportunity to apply their craft. And for me, I think MMA definitely has taken from WWE Vince McMahon's playbook in terms of, you have to market the stars, but you also want to market the brand. And UFC is like synonymous with MMA. It's like Kleenex, even though, there have been tremendous promotions in the past, like Strikeforce, Pride Fighting Championships, even Bellator actually outthrew the UFC on a recent show. But it's all about the marketing, you're right. But in terms of pro wrestling in itself, I think pro wrestling can enjoy another revival, Jim, in terms of what we're seeing now with New Japan, Ring of Honor, even WWE. I think there just needs to be more focus on storytelling inside the ring, and maybe the rise of New Japan to its niche popularity here in North America may be helping that, because I don't think we are, unless it's you or Paul Heyman, honestly, we don't need interminable promos to bore everybody. Well, and I know, because if you had me and Heyman, you'd have all the interminable promos to bore everybody you'd ever need.
But no, and I guess here's the thing is that now WWE and mainstream wrestling, let's say, has become synonymous entertainment wrestling. It's such a kid's thing or a casual fan thing or the, whatever teeny bopper thing or whatever thing it is that it's created almost a market on a complete other side for totally athletic wrestling. The problem is that market has not really been created. It's not big enough yet. Nor is it at the same time fully defined yet as to what that creative athletic wrestling should be. Whether it's Ring of Honor, whether it's Lucha, whether it's all the niche wrestlings that depend on in-ring, because that's what the wrestling fans of previous generations, they got in ring, but they also had the personalities. And that's why I've said,
and that's what
I love the New Japan show, and you guys do such a great job on the New Japan show, but I'd love, and I know you're not, I know you're doing a voiceover also. I know you're not right there all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, I would love to see you on camera with the microphone with those two guys having a hell of an argument that I could understand and slapping each other in the face. And that's the only thing I can't get. And I can't get my promos anymore.
What about NXT, Jim? Because I think if that is the blueprint for the future, then I know WWE is a favorite promotion, everyone to criticize and kick around, and I've done my own fair share because of the fact you're right. Maybe I'm 45 now, so I've seen many different styles and generations of pro wrestling, and yet, like I say, I enjoyed WWE last night because the roster is very talented, and it comes down to creative. And I know the creative is difficult. You've done it many times, Jim, and I know how ridiculously hard it must be to do 3 hours, let alone 5 hours that WWE has to do now. But when I look at NXT, and that's Triple H's brainchild, if that's the future of WWE, then I'm cautiously optimistic. Am I nuts?
Well, no, I don't think so. And I think that, everybody's always said, and I, deep down I knew it was true, but I thought it might have been talk at one point, that the shit will change when Vince is dead. But I think at this point, some shit will change when Vince is dead. And I think that at this point, Triple H probably, he understands what this generation wants, and that they need to make new, younger stars. The problem that I think is that it's harder than ever to make stars, and there's fewer people listening and watching. If you're standing on a platform in a park screaming your message, your message doesn't spread if there's not anybody listening to it.